Hey folks, this is Ben with Visionary Instruments, and I've got a very cool guitar in the shop today. This is the Adrian Belew Signature Parker Fly. It features a Sustainiac, DiMarzio pickup, and piezo bridge saddles. And we've got three different controls. There's a volume, there's a Sustainiac control, and then there's the Variax selector switch. In the back here, you can see our main Variax board that does all of the virtual guitar modeling. And then we've got our Sustainiac in the bottom there. This is the RMC Polydrive 1. We've got a balance control. This is a bridge, piezo, and neck balance to just help equalize the volumes. There's your 5-way volume, push-pull tones, and Sustainiac, and this would be your push-pull Variax. So this guitar is pretty interesting, and there's a lot going on. I wanted to make kind of a bit of a scribble. This isn't a comprehensive wiring diagram, but it does show the basic features and outline of the wiring. So not everything is on here. It's missing any ground wires and things like that, but you can kind of get an idea of the rough way where things are hooked up. So the guitar features a pretty crazy power supply. We've got a 9-volt in here which drives the Sustainiac, and you can turn that on with this little switch there that lights up, and then that'll activate our sustainer circuit. Normally you've got plus and minus 7 volts coming off of a Roland unit. This is required for this guitar. It doesn't work without it. It's going to run into this little box, and we've got a 9-volt AC adapter that connects into this box, and inside the box it converts it to 8-volt DC, and it puts the 8 volts onto pin 9, which normally isn't used by Roland, onto the 13 pin. So there is our 13 pin. So we're bringing in 8 volts, which supplies the Variax, and I think that comes in on this little red wire right there. And then we've got the 7 volts plus and minus, which are going to power up the Polydrive. So it really doesn't work without that hooked up. But once you get that going, everything's all right. So this board came to me with some damage. I found that this inductor here and this voltage regulator and this little diode were all smoked. They had released the magic smoke. So all of this stuff got replaced. I replaced this one, this regulator, and that little switching diode. The parts are kind of tricky to find, but I will try and link them, or if you want to contact me, if you have a similar Variax problem, let me know. But I was able to remove those traces and get that stuff back on the board. So Variax is up and running again. Okay, so what's going on? Well, if we want to operate the guitar, that volume does volume for everything. It'll do Variax volume, it'll do analog volume. We've got a push-pull in the second knob. If you pull that up, it'll turn on the sustainer, and then you can click it to turn it into harmonic mode. And then for the Variax knob, you can also pull that up and turn the guitar back into a regular analog guitar and use the analog pickups. So how does that work? Well, inside here, I was having a hard time figuring some of this out, so I figured I would explain what's going on. If we come down here, here's our piezo saddles connecting onto this board here. They split off into these two blue cables. They come into the back of the RMC Polydrive. And from there, we can get a summed piezo output, but we can also take, these are spliced in off the back of that Polydrive, and they go to an input filter on the Variax board. And so we're going to use those piezo saddles to drive the Variax models and to get your very different guitar tones. From that, let's see, the 5-way switch here is split into two sections. So you've got a left side, which is handling the analog, and the right side, which is handling the virtual guitar models. So these little cables right here will be run right into the Variax. On the other side here, you've got these wires coming down into the balance control. So that's your bridge, piezo, and neck pickup balance. So the way you set this guitar up is you check the output of the Variax because that's fixed. And then you can switch to the analog and equalize the volumes here. That way when you're switching back and forth, you get everything kind of lined up. Volume pot, very interesting. This is a triple stacked, looks like a Bournes to me. You can see 1, 2, 3 going down there. Very special pot, and that's how they do all of the different volumes all at the same time. Here's some other parts. Let's see here. The way they did this knob is really crazy. If you look, try to keep things still here. This structure here goes all the way around, and I don't know if they custom made this for this guitar. There's this, you can see the potentiometer all the way in the bottom, and then you have a switch, which is when they turn, when you turn the pot all the way in one direction, and then you've got the push-pull on the top there. And your push-pull is connected to the typical Sustainiac stuff. So if you're familiar with Sustainiac wiring, here we go. This is just a generic Sustainiac wiring circuit, but you can see how your wires will be connected to turn on the sustainer. So your on and offs, I believe, are, let's double check here. This is your wire function diagram. So I think it's green is your standby wire, orange, oh, there it is, yellow, connect to turn the sustainer on. So that is this little yellow wire way down here, and you can see that it's coming right over here to the push-pull on. So you click that, turns your sustainer on. What's really cool about this guitar is you can have it in Variax mode, and you can select the neck pickup. And once you've done that, you can turn on the sustainer and have a neck sounding sustainer. And normally that wouldn't be possible because if you're on the front of the guitar, you're using the neck to drive the guitar and the bridge as your drive signal. So you can't get the neck tone in sustain mode. So this guitar is one of the only instruments I've ever found that does that. That's really fun. So what else do we have here? The wiring was kind of interesting. From the DiMarzio, that is wired directly to the poly drive here. So the analog signal from the DiMarzio is that little red wire there. And that is split straight over to this output jack. So if you want to use this jack, you just get straight DiMarzio output. And then from there, we're going to go, I believe it's this little red wire right here. That's going to run down and into the balance circuit, and it will make its way over to this side here where we pick up that white wire. Okay, so that white wire brings us back to the sustainer. So we're going to follow that from here. Here we go. Here's the bridge pickup into the poly drive. It's a red wire into the balancing circuit, and then it runs on a couple of different wires out to these three pieces. So that far wire there is going up here to the sustainer, right? So that is the white wire here where we're going to pick up the sustainer input signal. It's a very important wire. And on the other side of that is the common terminal, right? So we've got this purple wire. One half of that is going to go into the volume down here, so you can see that connector there. And there's another purple wire which is really hard to see under there, but that makes its way out. You can see it on here. this one, that makes its way into the bottom of the Variax selector. So that's going to make it down here. And then the other side of that, which is this, brings it back down into the output. So you've got the output here in violet, and the output here is the brown wire, and that's for the Variax signal. So then there's this other mystery little board here. This was covered in shrink wrap when I found it, and that is actually an RMC buffer board. So that buffer board sits between the Variax blue wires. So you've got the 8-pin connector and the 10-pin connector blue wires. If you look around here on a typical, they are connected together. And what that does is it allows you to bring the neck pickup preamp circuit that's built into the sustainer, and that's going to be brought into the switch. There's an analog switch, which normally if you're going to run, let's say you've got the neck pickup selected, and then you turn on the sustainer. What the sustainer does is it automatically switches over to the bridge pickup. Well, how does it do that if you've left the analog, you know, the three-way switch in this case? Over here it'd be 5-way, but if you've got that into the neck pickup position, well, we can't have that, right? So what the Sustainiac does is it reverses these two, and it sends the neck pickup signal down. I'm sorry, it sends the bridge pickup signal down the neck pickup line. All right, so that's kind of what's going on here. And I'm not exactly sure why they needed the extra buffer there. I think it helps with noise or clicking or switching noise. But that's what's going on there. There's a couple of wires running up to that buffer. I believe that's positive and negative and ground voltage. So it's running on the same plus and minus 7 volts that we had driving the poly drive. So, and then there's a little black wire here, and that splices into that blue wire. That's why that looks so confusing. So that's what that little buffer is doing. Here we have our Sustainiac switch. So if you turn that on, you can turn on your sustainer. You've got power. That's just the battery. So you can see the battery wires heading up here and into the battery compartment. And that's your 9-volt. And what else is interesting here? On our tone pot, we've got the Sustainiac virtual wires. I'm sorry, the Variax virtual wires that are going to run up that way. So that pretty much goes over most of what you would need to know. Oh, this is a power input filter. So that's just bringing the filter in off the 8-volt line. And we're going to fold all this up and get it back in the guitar, and we can give you a little demo. Okay, so I got the guitar plugged in here, and we've got the Boss powering that up, and here I am in the neck position. I'm running the Variax model right now, so this is a, let's switch over to a Les Paul. So I can switch my virtual guitar, bridge, and then I can pull this up for the sustain mode. And I still get neck and bridge. Here's bridge. Click it into harmonic. If we want analog guitar, just pull up on this, and now we're into the regular sustain. So that's the Sustainiac pickup and the DiMarzio. And then we can combine piezos here. So if you want that piezo sound, and I believe this combines piezos and the DiMarzio. So all kinds of cool stuff that you can do with this guitar. It's really wonderful and lightweight and good looking too. So if you got any questions or want to get involved in